Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships today. Back to our intermediate player guide series, which we haven't done in like months. So we're going to be talking about Destroyer Torpedo Basics. So we're going to zoom in on the screen here. And when we talk about Destroyer Torpedo Basics, beyond knowing the ship you're sailing, which I'll talk about, it's also very important to look at the matchmaker before the start of the match, as this gives us a lot of information. When we look at the enemy team lineup, there's no CVs, there's no hybrids. They only have one radar in the form of the Buffalo. Only one of these battleships has Hydro. And then you have Hindenburg with Hydro as well. And even having the destroyer lineup, it's actually kind of favorable for us. Maybe the biggest threat would be the Alvaro D blah 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 blah. But other than that, it's a pretty decent lineup for us here in the Tier 10 Pan-Asian destroyer, the Yu Yang. It's kind of a gearing variant, but with the deep water torpedoes. And so I have built Yu Yang completely for torpedoes. When we're looking at the commander build or even the upgrades, and talking about the third slot having the torpedo tubes mod 1, which increases our torp speed and reduces the risk of them becoming incapacitated, and also improves the torpedo traverse speed. And then also the torpedo tubes mod 2, reducing our reload time by -15%, but that does come with a cost of plus 50% risk of torpedo tubes becoming incapacitated. And moving up along here, my goal in seeing how the match is going is to be able to push in, and maybe here on in this domination mode we can push up the 2 line with our devastating deep water torpedoes. Something that Yu Yang got actually not too long before this video or this battle recorded was getting the torpedo reload booster, and that has made Yu Yang even more favorable to play. And as you see in chat, I'm trying to be a good teammate in talking with Brisbane. If he wants smoke, to just holler and tell me. As a destroyer player, I really don't drop smoke for a teammate unless they have communicated to tell me, because often what ends up happening is you drop smokes and that cruiser player just ends up leaving the smoke completely, and then you just wasted a smoke, and maybe you need it if you get caught in an engagement later on. I'm more than willing and happy to share smoke with teammates, but that's part of using the chat or the quick commands, right? So, and moving up here, the Brisbane goes ahead and uses his radar, and we see that at the moment things are quite favorable for us, unless this submarine player is decently skilled in shotgunning us, being our biggest concern at the moment. So we're going to go ahead and come out here, and we're going to go ahead and engage him, just as the Brisbane radar goes down. We still are going to take some blind shots though, because why not? He's not that far away, and we got in a few additional pins there, but now nothing else is happening. So I decide in this circumstance, in this situation, that rather than continuing to push up and rush the sub in case he were to shotgun me, the engagement's quite early, you know, no one's died, the points are almost even. I'm going to play a little bit more closer to our my Brisbane teammate so I can have his support. As at the moment, I'm just waiting to see if the sub is deciding to push in, if that's how he's going to make his play or not. So when you are a torpedo destroyer player, granted we do have a pretty decent gun reload time, we want to play a little bit wisely. We don't want to be playing too brash, especially as the enemy battleships are pushing up on the 3 line. We don't want to be caught off guard and just with our pants down with the submarine just spotting us and us just not being able to do anything. So we've been waiting here, nothing's happening, and now we're going to go ahead and push back in. And that's probably one of the keys. If you are to be a good destroyer torpedo player in this game, you need to be able to have patience. Because it's not as exhilarating as maybe taking a hybrid, which could be built for sure as a hybrid, or a gunboat destroyer, but we're playing torpedo destroyer, and we really want to be able to get in on these battleships, as we've lost a battleship and the team has lost their Benson, so one less destroyer. So we're going to play off the island here. It doesn't seem like the sub is coming after us, So we're going to go ahead and we're going to push up. Now, something to note, one of the reasons why I like Yu Ying, since they brought the torpedo reload boost on her, is just because of how damaging these torpedoes are. They're Mark 17 torpedoes. They do 18,800 damage, speed of 13.5 kilometers, and I'm pretty sure I have the speed of these torpedoes about 76 knots, all said and done. So these torpedoes are the deep waters. They can only hit cruisers, battleships, and aircraft carriers. They cannot hit destroyers. So we go ahead, and now is the time to exert some influence here, as it doesn't seem that the submarine is around anymore. Maybe he's gone towards A. Uncertain here. As a Brisbane, I believe, is pinging there in the back, so it seems that Brisbane, or the enemy submarine player, has just completely bypassed me, which is unfortunate because I was also staying there to try to support the Brisbane player. So I did try the team work there, but you just never know. Now, we do go ahead and use our torpedo reload booster. I thought North Carolina might hold this course going out, but North Carolina does indeed not do that. Now, the biggest thing I see destroyer players that are focused on torpedo builds that they struggle with is that they get too close to the enemy ship that they're targeting for playing torpedoes. I even just quite recently watched a Kagero die to an AFK Iowa. It's Iowa or North Carolina, but I'm pretty sure it was in Iowa. And he only had 2,000 health, the Kagero, and he just got too close and launched his torps, and he died. Secondary kill from the AFK Iowa. So your concealment as a torpedo destroyer player is your biggest asset, and so you really do want to be mindful in keeping a healthy range. Our range concealment here, we've built for concealment, and there you see the Shimakaze, is 5.8. So we want to keep, and generally speaking, I like to try to see about keeping about a 0.5 kilometer gap between me and enemy ship in case he turns into me, I don't get caught off guard. But we are able to make magic work, and we dev strike the enemy North Carolina. Now, there are several things that are really helping us out here. One is the submarine player did not choose to engage with us. As you see, he's gone further down. And the Shimakaze is also not protected the flank. Granted, he's just also a torpedo destroyer player, but our guns do favor him a little bit in that engagement, even though his IJ and HE shells hit a little bit harder than ours, but he's no longer a concern because he's just died to the Marceau's torpedoes. The next big thing here, and when we continue talking about concealment, is just have your AA off. You will have battleship players that will be fishing for you with their depth charge airstrike here. As you see this Amagi, he's actually going for, I think, the sub and the cap. I think he has about a 10-kilometer range. But the Amagi can also use it as a way of finding us out. So we do want to be mindful of that and just keep our AA off, where the default key is the P key, but I've also built it into my mouse. I have keys also on my mouse. So you can just see we're just mirroring the Amagi here. We're just taking our time, accelerating. You know, he turned in. Now he seems to be turning away. And I think that this Amagi is just going to keep sailing away. Now, why do I think that? Well, you can see he's quite focused on the sub. He's continuing to drop depth charges towards the submarine, and he's just not going to want to take that engagement. There's no sense for him to push closer. If anything, he's going to be sailing back to the A line and likely kind of turning out and moving more away from me. So I kind of aim the torpedoes accordingly, thinking he's going to sail back more towards A, but at some point I think he's also just going to turn out in a way and start sailing towards the 5 line, which that's indeed exactly what he does. So we did call it decently well. He's going to eat 3 deep water torpedoes, which takes him down to 6,000. Now, there could be the temptation here to just simply open up with my main battery. Again, in this situation, I want to exert a little bit more patience and control, because there's not a pressure. Even when you're looking at the points, it seems almost tied, and we're actually ahead on kills. So I really don't need to be too anxious here and just start opening up. Could be even Amagi has a heal that he's not using yet, and he's trying to bait and see if I'm going to open up and then pop the heal and engage me. So that's one of the things that some battleship players would do. I do that to destroyer players, and It's amazing when you see a Shimakaze player open you up on you in a Minotaur after you take maybe a torp or two, and it's like, I had this thing called a super heal. Or even a Conqueror player, right? So you do have to be mindful here. And of course, we're watching the Battleship player to the south. You can see he's having some issues with the Summer player, but he dies to the Napoli, which is going to have a really good game here. So we're still shadowing here, and you can see I am really doing a good job at keeping that 0.5 kilometer range here. Now, one of the things I talk about, I think I've talked about in the Intermediate Player Guide series already, is always, before you even click battle, it's knowing the strengths and weaknesses of your ship. So I know the strengths and weaknesses of Yu Yang quite well, and this is why I feel quite comfortable in playing this as a tier 10 destroyer and building it for the torpedo build versus going for a radar gun build, which you can do, but I think for me it's a little bit more funner to just build this for taking on enemy battleships in particular. But you can decently stand your ground against other tier 10 destroyers, but you're definitely going to struggle if you go up against something like a Marceau, Sherman, or just other destroyers that are going to outgun you. Now in this situation, because we've collapsed our flank, we're a little bit out of the battle now, so the goal is to get back as soon as possible. You know, now it'd be nice to maybe have a engine boost, but of course we don't have that. I'm kind of bringing my guns on. Maybe I shoot Musashi, but you know, the Napoli is doing a fine job. We'll let Napoli have the kill, and we're just going to stay dark. If you actually remember, the last time we've been detected was actually down on F2 when the enemy submarine spotted us when we opened up on him. We haven't been detected the whole game since. They only just know maybe roughly where we are and seeing where the torpedoes are. So again, your greatest asset as a torpedo destroyer player is your ability to stay dark, not be detected. And this game has been quite favorable for us. Our team's been doing a good job. This Napoli player has been doing a really good job. As we start pointing out, our sub player who's moving along up here in front of us, spotting. But also just the team lineup really favored us this match. Now, if there was a CV, it might be rather difficult for me to actually have made that push up on the 2 line, because he would just be spotting me and spook all the battleships off. There's a lot of radar. That can also be really difficult as well, right? Now, let me talk about another torpedo destroyer basic here. And that is, as we move in on the islands, it's finding the opportunities to torpedo the gaps, torpedo the channels, where it's quite likely I would say your windows of opportunity, right? There's a Hindenburg, they're behind, there's pressure on the enemy team here. I recognize that pressure on the enemy team, so I'm like, well, Hindenburg's probably going to want to move up in Cap B. And I make that same revelation right now with the enemy Buffalo. He probably wants to move up and support the Hindenburg player in Bravo, as we just lose 2 ships. So again, we just barely have the lead. It's 4 versus 3. So we're going to use that torpedo reload booster. We're going to fill Bravo with torps, and we're also going to fill this gap in between Bravo and Charlie Cap, also with torpedoes. And our bets pay off here. And not being detected on the mini-map, you know, the enemy players can actually forget they don't even know that you're back in the spawn. Last thing to know, well, that Yu Yang player was over on F2. So again, we're able to take advantage of that here and torping those windows of avenue here and making this a really nice torpedo destroyer gameplay here. We're ending the game with 4 kills and 120,000 damage. So we're going to go ahead and go into post-battle results, and I'll just talk a little bit more after that. But in this battle of premium count, 430,000 credits, 120,000 damage with 12 torpedo hits. We only did 5 target gun hits. You know, of course, yes, there were some opportunities we could have opened up, but again, I was kind of more relying on the fact of our concealments, and I think that opened us up maybe some opportunities where Hindenburg and Buffalo really weren't paying as much attention as they should have, as both of them have hydro. But it could have been down. 4 destroyed, 5 floods, 2 defender ribbons. We're going to place second on the team with our Napoli doing a good job. We complimented him. The enemy Venezia and Hindenburg did a really good job on their team, all things considered. But just recognizing the power of matchmaking really helped us out a lot in this match as well. And spotting damage, 27,000. That's the other asset that you have as a concealed torpedo destroyer player. You're doing spotting for your team, so a decent little chunk of spotting there. Not too much floods, as just raw torpedo damage this game. And then you can see how we end here with premium account. So I'm kind of circling back to this intermediate player guide series. I want to talk more about, I think the last one was when to push early, and I featured Schlieffen in that. This is actually back in November, so this series I've really let too much dust settle on it for too long of a time, but going more through different tactics that you would as a more per se experienced player. I really wouldn't put this one per se in the new player guide series just because of how regularly I see destroyer players, and when you see a Kagero player get too close to an AFK Iowa player and die to a secondaries versus just staying outside of concealment, I mean, how easy can it get to not die in that situation, right? But I just see there are a fair amount of torpedo destroyer players who do struggle with this. Of course, sometimes you just get completely off guard. I've been caught off guard, of course, as well. But when there's a power that relies on your ability to stay concealed and not detected for as long as we did in that game, there's just a lot of opportunities, and enemy team just forgets that, oh, there's actually a destroyer back in our spawn. And maybe you get a kill like that Buffalo and Hindenburg player who are unaware and having no Hydro up. So if you liked today's video, please let me know in the comments, and maybe you can give me some other ideas if there's certain type of gameplay you would like to see me cover here with different classes in the game. I can't really guarantee, I won't guarantee anything with submarines nor CVs, but the destroyers, cruisers, and battleships is where I prefer playing most here in World of Warships. So if you liked today's video, give a thumbs up. If you didn't, give a thumbs down. Subscribe if you want to see more. If you have subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and we will catch you next time. Take care.